Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, saying thank you for tuning in to the show where we talk about the two things that no one's supposed to talk about, politics and religion, and yes, they do indeed mix. Bit of a dreary day here in Southern California as a little weak storm is coming through and giving us a little bit of precipitation, not much, but a little bit, and that's always good. Considering that we'll take this as a switch to all the Santa Ana winds and the fires we've been having over the last few weeks, and no doubt this is contributing to moisture in the ground, and we're thankful for that. In just a little bit, we'll be joined by someone named Erin Friday. We've never had Erin on our show, but our previous guest from last Wednesday, Jennifer Lynn Kennedy, had suggested to me offline that Erin Friday would be a good guest. And Erin is an attorney, she's a mother, she's the president of Our Duty, which is an international support network for parents who wish to protect their kids from gender ideology. So we'll be talking to her in just a few minutes because just today, if you haven't heard, President Trump just signed another executive order making sure that biological males would be barred from women's sport. Now, you would think that that is something that we wouldn't have to even debate just a few seconds ago, but here we are where a president actually has to sign an order banning biological males from playing with females in women's sports. And so that just happened literally just before we went on the air. Many of you also know that one of the president's high picks for his cabinet was pushed through last night, late, Pam Bondi for AG. That, of course, was in lieu of Matt Gaetz back in November, December of last year. Then, of course, Matt stepped aside after a couple of weeks. But I think Pam Bondi is a really good replacement. She's got a great resume, great head on her shoulders, and very well respected there in the state of Florida where she practiced law for very, very many years. So looking forward to some of the things that she's going to do. And I would say that I'm actually quite surprised with the amount of cabinet picks that are actually being voted on and are being pushed through. Now, granted, most of it is one-sided. Republicans are voting in the affirmative for the most part, and every once in a while a Democrat will cross over. I think John Fetterman, was the lone Democrat for Pam Bondi, and there might have been a couple more Democrats for some of the other confirmation individuals over the last couple of days, but in reality it's just been basically one-sided. But Trump seems to be getting his picks. One big debate that people are having online right now that I've been noticing both on the Christian side as well as on the secular side is in Trump's decision to somehow take over and control Gaza. Now, I'm going to just say to you what I said to somebody on Facebook not too long ago. I'm going to wait about 24 to 48 hours, maybe even longer, to figure out exactly what Trump might have meant or may not have meant about this, quote, acquisition or interventionism into Gaza. I know that Prime Minister Netanyahu is actually quite pleased with it, but all I can say is the reactionary folks are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be reacting, and they are, both Democrats and Republicans. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to wait about 48 hours before I make a comment. So hopefully by next Wednesday, I'll have a fully formed idea about what's going on with the interventionist notion of taking over Gaza. As I promised on our show today, for the very first time, is Erin Friday, attorney. She's a mother, president of Our Duty, which is an international support network for parents who wish to protect their kids from gender ideology. Erin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on today.
And Erin, you're calling from Northern California, right?
I am right outside of San Francisco.
Oh, I'm sorry. How are you dodging all the poop on the sidewalk?
I'm not that close. I moved out before the poop patrol became a normal thing.
Well, very good. Has it been raining up your way? Because I was in Santa Maria yesterday when we were texting back and forth, and it was starting to come down in Santa Maria around 5 o'clock yesterday. How's the weather up your area?
Well, it was horrible. I had to drive to Sacramento to meet with some lawmakers on the gender issue, and I went through torrential rainfall and almost got blown off the bridge. The wind was so strong. So, yeah, it's been nasty.
So I find it maybe not ironic is the wrong word here, but maybe providential that you are our guest today. And on this very same day, President Trump signed the executive order banning biological males from women's sports. And you are not only a mother, you're not only an attorney, but you're also the president of Our Duty here in the U.S. of A. And, of course, there are other branches across the globe. But this is an international support network for parents who wish to protect their kids from gender ideology. Would you just kind of tell our listeners a little bit about Our Duty?
Sure. So Our Duty got started in the UK, and it is in, I think, now 30 different countries, and we all do our own thing based on countries. So Our Duty USA is mainly an advocacy group, and it does provide some parental support for those parents whose children are gender confused and they're looking for the facts and looking for some assistance with lawyers, with mental health providers, and just understanding how their child got caught in this gender vortex.
Yeah. I noticed on X, and by the way, you can find Erin Friday on X. You posted a video a few years ago where you describe yourself as a disaffected Democrat who would be voting Republican, and that you also have a daughter who was influenced negatively by gender ideology. Tell our listeners a little bit about your journey, if you will, as a, quote, disaffected Democrat, and also whose daughter was influenced by gender ideology.
Sure. So I've been a Democrat since I was 18 years old, when the Democrat Party looked very different from the way it looks today. And I was busy leading my life. And unfortunately for me, I only read mainstream media, which is very typical for us coming from the left. So I didn't see this gender ideology, moving its way forth into our schools until my daughter came home and announced that she was something on the LGBTQ spectrum, and that's how it begins. They pick something, a label which they learn at school, pansexual, polyamorous, lesbian, you name it, at the ripe age of 11, when I'm sure she knows exactly what she is and what her future is going to be like. And that was the unraveling of everything that I believed in, including my disaffection or defection from the Democrat Party, although I'm still registered Democrat, and I do that for a reason, because I want the party to see that the rank and file Democrats are against this. And your listeners should know that the regular Democrat people, not the people in office, not the people wielding power, we are 100% against transitioning children, which doesn't happen. No one can change sex. We are against boys being in girls' sports and whatnot. And you can look at the national polling and see that the Democrat leaders are not listening to their constituents. And so this is how we got here, and they're continuing to dig in. So I voted for Trump. I know a lot of people voted for Trump who are Democrats, and we will continue voting Republican for maybe forever.
Yeah. I know that you're waiting to testify on a bill, and hopefully we'll be able to get as many of these questions as I can. We're talking to Erin Friday, who is an attorney and also president of Our Duty. I wanted to ask you the question: when did the Democratic Party sell their soul for this whole gender ideology fixation? And do you think that it is a small faction of the party, but yet they're the ones that have the biggest mouths and the deepest pockets?
I think you hit the nail on the head. If I chased back the history in California, and we were at the beginning of transgenderism in our state. No surprise there. But I chased it back to 1999 when the first law was passed in California that put the terminology gender identity into law, and from there it just grew, and it was like a boiling frog. So people weren't, at least the rank and file, weren't paying attention to these incremental bills that moved along to the period of where we are in complete insanity at the moment. And I do believe it's a small faction of uber progressive liberals, and most of the Democrats, they don't even know. They don't have an understanding, or they don't even believe that girls as young as 13 are getting their breasts removed in the name of gender. I'm always surprised when people say, no, that's not happening. I'm like, what are you reading? So yeah, they're very loud, and they're really well funded. If you look at the Human Rights Campaign, I believe last year it brought in $78 million. They are the biggest pushers of trans ideology. We have the Pritzkers. They are billionaires, and they are pushing this. So their funding is almost endless because, too, it's our tax dollars that is funding this movement also, as we learned with Kamala Harris's campaign, that we are all, everyone listening to this radio program, we're all contributing to the mutilation and harms of children because we pay our taxes.
I'm wondering when these children and these young people go to these doctors, and we're going to talk a little bit about President Trump ending federal support for gender transitions when he signed that executive order last month. I'm wondering how transparent the doctors are with the parents and or the children about the possibility or the absolute possibility that if they go through this procedure that they are probably never going to have children. Is that a conversation that even happens?
I'm not sure that the conversation even happens, and if it does, it still doesn't matter. When you're telling a 13-year-old that they may not have children, that 13-year-old's brain is far from developed, and their ability to comprehend that adoption doesn't mean you walk into a store and just pick a baby off the shelf. If that's provided to them as an option, these kids are kids, and they're certainly not thinking about having children of their own. They don't understand long-term consequences. I know that a young woman who detransitioned, she believed from what she heard from her doctor is that she would actually change into a boy. Now, that's an impossibility, but this is a 14-year-old girl's brain. Yep. This is what it hears, even if the doctor doesn't say it. So, no, these conversations, even if they are happening, are not, these kids aren't consenting. And I'll tell you one thing that parents are told time and time again is that if they don't transition their children, that their child will commit suicide. And I've had that conversation myself, so I know what it is. And these parents then are absolutely terrified that if they don't poison their child with cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers, that their child is going to be buried. Yeah. And it's just a horrible, awful thing to do to a parent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let me ask you a question. We're talking to Erin Friday. What is the difference between gender and sex? I'm hearing the debate online about we shouldn't refer to it as gender because gender can be, on the spectrum, whereas sex is a fixed and determined thing like male, female. What is your understanding of the differences between gender and sex and the usages of those words?
Well, I don't believe that the word gender has any meaning whatsoever when it comes to a human. Gender was used for, being a less sexually charged word than saying sex. What's your gender? but we should be using the word sex in all of our conversations. This is where the gender ideologues have hijacked our language, but there's no such thing as a gender identity. That's a made-up concept. Nobody has an internal sense of self that mismatches with their body. You are one. You are made one, and that's it. You may express yourself differently. There's very masculine women and very feminine men, but that doesn't mean that their gender identity is that of a woman. There's no such thing as that. So I always encourage people to use the right terminology, sex. There are two sexes. There are not, a panoply of gender identities. It's all made up. So I stay away from that word, and I think President Trump did a really great job with all of his executive orders in using the right terminology.
Yeah, and of course, I haven't spoken to a progressive uber liberal lately that could actually give me the exact number of how many, quote, genders there are, right? Some people are saying 50, some people say 95. Some people are saying there's an endless amount.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to have to hang up soon, but I'll tell you there's a psychologist at University of San Francisco, and she says there's an infinite number of genders. So let that sink in. She even said that there's a Prius gender, a Tesla gender. I mean, the number of genders keeps growing. Cat gender, gender queer. None of these words mean anything. They're all made up. You are female or male. Even those who are suffering from disorders of sexual development, they are still female or male. There is no person that is not one of those or in between.
Erin Friday, can you quickly, before you get off, tell folks about Our Duty and how folks can support that organization?
Yes, so people can go to ourduty.group. I know it's a weird website, but we started in the UK. You can go to the contact sheet if you want to get involved and do any kind of advocacy or stay abreast of what's going on in the laws in the nation and how you can help. And if you're a parent and you have a child who was caught in the web, please reach out to us. We can help you get in touch with other support groups and lawyers who will take your cases, because really the way we're going to fix California is through the courts and through these lawsuits. So I encourage people to, really reach out, and anybody who thinks that this is wrong, reach out to Our Duty. I can put you to work, even if it's making a phone call to the governor and telling him to veto a bill.
Absolutely. Well, whatever bill you're going to testify on, I'm sure you'll testify well. Erin Friday, thank you so much for joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit. We hope to have you back.
Yeah, I apologize. I have to run. Thank you so much.
All right, Erin. Take care. You're listening to Politics and the Pulpit here with your holy host. We'll come back in just a minute and talk about, the Democrats' plan to impeach Trump again on your hometown station. Back here on Politics in the Pulpit, this is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, back for another opportunity to talk to you about religion and politics. We just had a great conversation with Erin Friday. Reminds me of that old Cary Grant movie, His Girl Friday. Some of you are not old enough to remember those kinds of movies, and you're probably not nuts enough like me to research all this kind of stuff. But anyway, Erin Friday represents a group called, let me see here. Our Duty. Thank you very much, Jen. I have it right here in my hands, and for some reason I couldn't read it. I had a Mitch McConnell moment, and they're reframing the debate from gender dysphoria to transgender ideation. And I wanted to talk about this one article real quick here. This is from the Los Angeles Times. This is from yesterday, actually, in reference to Trump's order from last month aiming to end federal support for gender transitions for those under the age of 19. We have an article here from the Los Angeles Times, which, by the way, is not, uber conservative, last time I checked. Says this, quote, Children's Hospital, L.A. stops initiating hormonal therapy for transgender patients under 19. And, of course, obviously, elections have consequences. Here's a little bit of what the article says. Children's Hospital Los Angeles, a major provider of care for transgender youth, says it is pausing. That's always a concern for me. That means they can probably started up again, but says it is pausing the initiation of hormonal therapy for gender-affirming care patients under the age of 19. The move comes 1 week after President Trump issued an executive order seeking to stop the use of puberty blockers, hormones, and other medical procedures for transgender youth. And, this is a good thing. And again, it's a pause. I'm hoping that the pause ends up being an eternal thing here. But this is from the party that has told us for years that they've always represented the children. And now they're using the children as a cudgel, politically speaking, and allowing some very barbaric things to happen in the name of, quote, science for our children. Before we went to the break, I kind of teased what the Democrats are doing right now. We have all kinds of problems happening. We've got a border that's out of control that, of course, Trump is doing his best to kind of rein in. We've got threats from China. We've got threats from the Mideast. We've still got a bunch of things happening between Israel and Iran and the Palestinians and all of that. But what are the Democrats up in arms about again? Well, believe it or not, the Democrats are already trying to impeach Donald Trump. It's only been 2 weeks, folks. 2 weeks and 3 days, if you're looking at the calendar. They're already trying to impeach Donald Trump, and here is why. This article is from townhall.com, and it goes on to talk about the day after Trump announced his intention to take over the Gaza Strip amid the war between Israel and Hamas, Representative Al Green, not that same Al Green, by the way, that's a great song and a great singer, announced on the House floor that he is introducing articles of impeachment against the president for participating, I mean, just this silly stuff, man, for participating in ethnic cleansing in the Now, let's just stop for a second. So yesterday, Trump announced his intention to take over the Gaza Strip. Now, no other details were given, just this is what Trump does. Trump says something, and then for the next 24 to 48 to 72 hours, there is an absolute reaction from our libtard friends and the legacy media, and even from some of our weak-kneed, thin-skinned Republican friends who just don't get Trump. And that's why I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not really going to formulate an opinion on this because I don't know what's going on in his mind. I don't know if he even knows what he means by his announcement to take over the Gaza Strip. But if you watched MSNBC, if you watched a bunch of these shows, they're going nuts. And even folks on the Bulwark and the Dispatch, David Drucker and those guys, which are kind of middle-of-the-road conservative Republicans, what I would consider old guard Republicans, Mitch McConnell Republicans, John Boehner Republicans, those guys are going nuts. But Al Green is a Democrat from Texas, and he says that the president is participating in ethnic cleansing, which means that he is accusing President Trump and our government of going in and just exterminating all of the Palestinians. All of them. And Green began his blustery speech by saying, quote, ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke. I guess not. Actually, it is a joke because it's not happening at the moment, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world. And Green further reiterates and says ethnic cleansing has been a crime against humanity and declared that he was standing there to denounce what the president said, which, by the way, the president never said anything about ethnic cleansing, so I have no idea what Al Green is doing here. And, of course, you can say just about anything on the House floor without having to lawyer up, right? But anyway, he wanted to denounce the complicity of the Prime Minister of Israel and to remind people that Dr. King was right. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so these articles will go nowhere, but of course this is just the first flurry of basically sending the message and the flag up the mast that this type of behavior can be tolerated. and this is where we should go as the Democratic Party. We can't negotiate with the president. We can't talk to the president. We can't join up with him with some of the good things that he's doing. No, they're just going to go nuts, and they're going to full bore, pedal to the metal. We're going back to what made us look like lunatics November 5th, 2024. Talking about lunacy, I think we have a clip here, Jen, that I want to play. So over the weekend, the Democratic National Committee had to choose a representative to represent the Democratic National Committee. And none of you could even name the prior committee member. And then they also have to do a bunch of seats, vice chairs, and things like that. And so they had to, convene this forum, and all the lunatics and liberal heads from MSNBC were there to basically deal with this whole situation. I think it was Jen Psaki, I think it was Jonathan Capehart, and some other woman there from MSNBC. But anyway, it was nuts. And so a gentleman came up to talk about the voting procedure. And this is about 2 minutes. I don't know how much of it I'll play, but I want you to listen to the absolute insanity and how they get themselves into these pretzels, and they don't even know what they're talking about. Listen to this.
As you know, our 3 at-large vice chair positions are used to ensure gender balance among 7 offices: treasurer, secretary, national finance chair, and vice chair for civic engagement and voter participation, and the 3 at-large vice chairs. Our rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. So again, this is what we have to do for this vice chair race. We have to elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. To ensure our process accounts for male, female, and non-binary candidates, we conferred with our RBC co-chair, our LGBT caucus co-chair, and others to ensure that the process is inclusive and meets the gender balance requirements in our rules. To do this, our process will be slightly different than the one outlined to you earlier this week, but I hope you will see that in practice it is simple and transparent. As we must elect a candidate of any gender as well as 1 male and 1 female vice chair, we will first ask members to elect a candidate of any gender on the first ballot. Any candidate, male, female, and non-binary, can be elected on that ballot. After a candidate is elected on the first ballot, we'll have 1 officer of the 3, so then we will know which position is filled of the 1 male, 1 female, and 1 vice chair of any gender.
Let's stop.
Our second ballot would also...
Jen, our board op, would you get the microphone to your wonderful face there? I just want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you understand anything that guy was saying?
No.
I mean,
Not at all.
did anybody you think that was seated there even understood what he was trying to say?
I don't think he understood what
I don't
was
think he
saying.
understood either.
There's
I think the guy was
definite
stumbling
confusion. Yeah.
over a text
Yeah.
that he was reading, and if we continued on, in fact, I think there was another minute or so that I had intentionally cut, but he went on to then address a woman that was on the dais there, saying, "Could you explain further what these rules mean?" Like he didn't even know them himself.
It sounds like they're kind of just making them up as they go along a little
Lots
bit.
of fun stuff, Jen. Lots of fun stuff. So, Jen, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
You're the mother of proud children. You heard my interview with Erin Friday. Mm-hmm. We're going to have her back on. Would you say, as not necessarily overtly political on one side of the aisle or the other, that you think it is a good thing for the Children's Hospital here in our wonderful, fair city that it stops initiating hormonal therapy for transgender patients under 19.
Yeah, I think that's a fair decision. Let's stop forcing things on our kids. And you and I talked a little bit about this last week, I think. So as a parent, I'm just supposed to kind of look the other way if one of my children is expressing that they maybe don't know how to identify themselves, or they're confused, or they need guidance. So I'm supposed to look the other way, but yet I'm expected to educate them properly, feed them properly, take them to the doctor properly, make sure that they get whatever vaccinations. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm just talking about in general. I'm expected by the law to do my job as a parent.
Yeah.
But yet for this, I'm not allowed to do that.
What is let's go back to vaccinations for a quick here, because I know that there are a lot of opinions on this one from both sides of the political spectrum, whether religious or non-religious. What about that one vaccination that is given to our newborns for sexually transmitted diseases, and they want to, what do they call that one?
Are you talking about not HPV?
It's the one that is about sexually transmitted diseases, and I'm thinking, why in the world would I want to give my newborn
2-hour-old baby?
Yeah, this particular vaccination? Now, see, that's where I think they go overboard.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand the measles thing, or polio, of course, was back in the day, but if that's still something that needs to be done, and some of the ones that all my kids got, but they're like adding more and more, and they're like strange.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my 2-hour-old kid is not threatened by a sexually transmitted disease.
I don't remember. I do know that there was a battery of vaccinations, and oral medication that they would give the baby. So I don't want to speak on what I think it might be, but it could be maybe something that the mother might pass along to the baby.
Maybe the mommy was a drug baby
during birth.
A drug mama.
Possibly, yeah.
You weren't a drug mama, though.
No, not that I remember.
No, okay.
No.
Yeah, you're
that would have stood out.
A little dementia right now, right? Exactly, yeah. Well, I just know that we had some convictions with our third child.
Mm-hmm.
We decided not to go with certain vaccinations a little bit later on. Obviously, all the initial ones that occurred at the newborn was fine.
Right.
But we took a stand on certain vaccinations that we just didn't think were necessary. And I think as a parent, we're incumbent to be able to say no to that or yes to that.
Yeah, that's your job as a parent.
I think so. But then we have one political party looking at us like we're, Neanderthals, knuckle-dragging Neanderthals, thinking, that we're going to cause everyone to get sick. But yet at the same time, they're going to let everybody across the southern border that's not been vaccinated either. And now we're getting, measles epidemic, down on the southern border and some places up north. And I'm thinking, if everyone's been vaccinated for measles, but they haven't, and yet we're reluctant to say where that's coming from. Southern border, maybe some from the northern border. Who knows?
Doesn't fit the narrative.
Exactly. So, but anyway, Jen, thank you so. And by the way, how are you enjoying this nice turn of events again of weather?
I love it.
Do you like it?
I'm from the Midwest, and so I struggle with, and everyone makes fun of me, the 80 degrees all day, every day, 360 days a year. It gets kind of annoying after a while.
Does it? Okay.
My husband thinks I'm crazy. I welcome the change.
But your husband's a California guy, right?
No, he's from Pittsburgh, born and raised.
Oh, he's a PA guy.
Pittsburgh,
not a Steelers fan.
They
though.
get real weather. Oh, he most certainly is.
Oh, is he?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll pray for him.
And
by the way,
who's black and gold? Yeah.
What is the household looking to this Sunday for the Super Bowl?
Well, since I'm from St. Louis, we've kind of adopted Kansas City because we had another city take our football team right from underneath us. So we were kind of left in the cold.
Are you going to be home? Or are you going to be with a little conglomeration of friends?
We'll just hang out at home, make some dips and junk food, and enjoy the afternoon. Yeah.
Who's the halftime show this year?
That's a good question.
Janet Jackson?
It's not Beyonce? I wish it was Janet.
Oh, by the way, talking about Beyonce, I think we're good on time here. How excited were you for her and for our country?
Oh, it's just great.
That she was
It's
able
great.
to win a Grammy for
It's
the
great.
best country album.
But interestingly enough,
And I haven't even heard the song.
she did not. No, I have not either. She did not win anything through. And I don't know her name. The proper title, the Country Music Association, I think.
The CMAs.
The CMAs did not award her anything earlier.
Oh, no,
I
they
guess
wouldn't.
later in 2024. So she's not winning through the CMAs, but the Grammys are. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I find that to be
Neither
curious.
do I. And as a purist, now I like all kinds of music, to be fair. Obviously, pop music is my choice. Frank Sinatra, Bobby Darin, that kind of stuff. But I'm also a purist when it comes to country and Western music. I grew up with a dad that liked fiddles, guitar, steel guitar, that kind of stuff. So traditional honky-tonk, barroom
Yeah.
type of country and Western music. And I don't know how many of our listeners out there would remember the Grammys, the Country and Western Awards from 1973, 1974, when Charlie Rich, now do you remember that name, Charlie Rich?
No.
Charlie Rich had a big hit in 1973 with a song called Hey, Did You Happen to See the Most Beautiful Girl?
I know that song,
Okay, great.
yeah.
That was a huge hit, both
Okay.
on the country charts as well as the pop charts. Well, he was awarded a Grammy that year, but then there was another guy by the name of John Denver that was also awarded an award from the Country Western Association. Charlie Rich was the guy that was supposed to give him the Grammy. And on stage, you can see this on YouTube, by the way, just look it up. Charlie Rich took the card that was handed to him that announced John Denver as the Country Artist of the Year or something like that for 1973, 1974, and he lit it on fire on stage.
Oh wow.
Because John Denver did not represent, quote, pure country.
Country, right.
Yeah. You know,
Right.
Rocky Mountain High and,
Sure.
you know, I guess thank God I'm a country boy is about as close as it got,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Take Me Home, Country Roads. Some of us would say it would be more of a countrypolitan,
Yeah.
like an infusing of pop and country, which was, I guess, very popular in the late 60s and early 70s.
Sure.
But country purists like Rich,
Weren't having it.
and then 50 plus years later, someone like Beyonce winning it would be like an abomination.
Well, and it's a little bit at a time. In Beyonce's defense, I will say, obviously, what you're talking about with John Denver, certainly, and then even a little bit further beyond that, Dolly Parton was obviously country, but she had a pop look to her.
Yeah, but
She's
she was
very
working 9 to
sparkly,
5.
and you know, she's a working girl. But you have someone like Shania Twain and Faith Hill show up, and they completely changed the whole image of what pop and country music
Well,
is.
I just want you to know that I feel like a woman.
Well, that's apparent.
I think we were just talking about that with that whole transgender thing right there.
apparent.
Well, we got to go
You
to a
don't
break
say.
here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about these Trump tariffs. And as we come to the close of the show today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Trump tariffs and exactly what the intention in Trump's mind is. I don't know what his mind is about Gaza, but I think I do know about the whole tariff thing. So when we come back on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll kind of get into Trump's mind about what his intentions are with these tariffs here on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit. Again, this is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, Pastor Jerry Cook, back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about, religion and politics. You remember that 60 Minutes video or interview that Kamala Harris gave back in October, and it was highly edited, and there was the Trump administration basically forced the FCC to release the unedited video, and I guess it's out now. So the FCC finally releases the full unedited video transcript of Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview, and you can check it out on Red State and other streaming platforms and or even YouTube, I think, and you will see exactly what was edited out. And to be fair, there's no doubt that a lot of these shows edit out comments. But this was in an attempt to make Kamala look better than she did. And they do this a lot for our Democratic friends, but they don't do this very much for our Republican friends. They want to make the Republicans look as silly as possible. and they want the Democrats to look as polished as possible. And so they did their absolute utmost to make Kamala look as good as possible just prior to the November 5th election, which, of course, wasn't much to their chagrin and, of course, to no avail, for she lost resoundingly. So a lot of my friends are still a little up in arms, especially my conservative friends, about the whole tariff situation. Yes, let's just make it clear right off the top of the bat, real quickly, a tariff is a tax. No doubt about it, a tariff is a tax. A rose by any other name is indeed still a rose. So as conservatives, we're not really into taxes, but we know that we have to pay taxes, especially if they're reasonable taxes. If I'm not mistaken, there's a history in this country about not having and wanting to pay taxes, especially overburdensome taxes, right? You remember the whole Boston Tea Party and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the whole point of tariffs is not necessarily to impose the tariff per se, even though that does happen. The whole point of the tariff is really for America, aka the Trump administration representing America, to use that as leverage to get what they want from said country. For instance, let's just take Mexico for an instance here. I believe that the president of Mexico caved within a day or so, hours, of the 25% tariff or so that was going to be implemented on goods coming into their countries, and obviously the president of Mexico relented and said, hey, listen, what do you guys want? Well, what Trump wanted, what the administration wanted, was for Mexico to send more troops, Mexican troops, to the southern border. Now, they already have some troops on the southern border, but the Trump administration wanted more troops, thousands more troops. So in this case, the tariffs were paused and have not been implemented. What's the point? Leverage. It worked. Trump got what he wanted from the Mexican president. Same thing with the Panama Canal situation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio goes into the higher ups there, dealing with the whole Panama Canal and China, basically, placing burdensome taxes over much, if you will, over the American ships coming across the canal or coming through the canal, and he's able to, within minutes, to basically get them to say, "Hey, listen, we won't have China do this anymore. We'll stop." What's the point? Leverage. He got something accomplished there. And then you just consider Canada for a moment. Trudeau, of course, is trying to huff and puff and blow his, the house of cards down up there. And, of course, his entire administration is already in shambles. And he's evidently, he's basically already stepped down. And the conservative opposition is polling far ahead of the Liberal party there in Canada. And so that guy named Pierre Pavlov, I forget how to pronounce his French last name, but he's probably going to end up being the Prime Minister of Canada within about a year. He kind of came out and said, well, we'll go ahead and levy a tariff on American goods. Listen, folks, Canada is not going to be able to do to America what America can do to Canada. And so, to my conservative friends out there, as I close out the show, the tariffs are meant as leverage. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And if the tariffs do get implemented, in the short run, you're going to be paying more for some things, no doubt about it. But in the end, we're going to win that war. Why? Because we are the United States of America. Thanks for tuning in today to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. Next week, I believe we'll have another good show for you. I don't have the guest for you. We may not even have a guest, but we'll see what happens. But we encourage you to tune in and be safe out there as you're driving around in this wonderful wet weather. We'll catch you next week, same bad time, same bat channel here on your hometown station.